Hey everybody, this is Deb from Garden Devotions, and today we're going to do a wire pendant. We're going to make a wire pendant that looks like this, except mine's going to be a different color. So it's going to actually have this as the base wire, and then I'm going to use the gold for wrapping because I think the contrast between the two will make it a little easier to see what I'm doing. I hope, for you. Okay, so here we are. This is what we're going to do. It uses wire, and if you don't know anything, if you've never worked with wire before, please go see my other video that's on the basics of wire wrapping, because I give you all the information about the different gauges of wire and the tools that you'll need overall. For this particular project, you're going to need your wire cutters, you're going to need the basic 4 tools, the bent nose pliers, the round nose so you can do your curls, your spirals, and then you're going to need probably need some nylon jaw pliers to help you straighten wire. Okay, so that's where we're going to start. The wire we're going to be using today is from Parawire, and it's going to be a 20 gauge for the base wires, and then we're going to use 26 gauge for the wrapping wire and the weaving wire. And you'll hear me call it both wire wrapping and wire weaving. It's the same thing. You're actually weaving with the wire, so it's a more accurate term, but I tend to say wire wrapping sometimes too. So, okay, this one is gold, and then this one is the antique copper. And the reason I'm doing them again is for contrast purposes. Now, those are the tools you're going to need. If you do not wear glasses and you're not, I'm going to use this on the spool, but if you use it where it's off the spool, it's just loose, I highly recommend that you get a pair of these. I got these from the Dollar Tree for $1. And you're going to need something to really protect your eyes if you don't wear glasses, because that little end, if it's not on the spool, the little end can whip around and hit you in the eye. I speak from experience. Fortunately, it did not really damage my eye much. It just hurt for a few days, and it healed up pretty fast, but it could have been a lot worse. So I really recommend that you do that. Now, I wear glasses. If you see my other videos, you know I wear glasses. However, I'm extremely nearsighted. So when I need to do very fine work, I've got to take my glasses off, and I have to get it right up to my face. So that's why it could be interesting trying to make sure this is all in focus for you. But I will be probably taking my glasses off before I start the actual weaving, so I can make sure what I'm doing is accurate. Now, we're going to take off some of this wire. If it's not very straight for you, you can make it straighter. That's the good thing about the nylon jaw pliers, but it's probably better to wait until you've got it cut before you start doing that, so that you have a little, you know more what you're working with. Now, it's approximately 8 inches, but for me, I've measured it a few times, and so I do about 8 inches is from here, about my wristband here, up to the tip of my finger, and we just cut it off, and we need 3 of these, the same length. So 3 lengths. Again, if you're totally new to wire, you may want to go check out that first video. I had to do 3 of them. The videos in 3s, because I have a really extremely slow internet connection, and it would take like a week for it to upload if it was an hour and a half or hour and 45 minutes long, which it was at first. Now, I will tell you before we get into this, this video is only going to take you to the part where it ends up like this. I know this isn't exactly the same weave because I've got 5 wires, but we're going to get to this point with it, and that's all the further this video is going to go. And then I will have a final video that does how to take it from looking like that to looking like this at the top. Okay, so that's what we're going to do. I wanted to let you know that ahead of time before you get into this. Now you'll notice that our wires are not extremely straight. I mean, it's not horrible that it's like that. You can do it with your fingers. With 20 gauge, you can do it with your fingers. Just kind of, if you don't have nylon jaw pliers, you just kind of want to run your fingers along it to straighten it out a little bit. And that way it'll be better. Some pieces that you're going to work on, having it perfectly straight is going to be more important. This one, as we weave, it'll get straighter. But you can just run your fingers along there to straighten it out, or you can use the nylon jaw pliers. I find it with 20 gauge, I find it just as easy to use this. Sometimes with the higher gauges, like 16 or 18, I need the nylon jaw pliers to do that. And they are useful for other things as well. So just kind of turn it. You turn it a little bit so you're getting it kind of going in every which direction. That gives you a chance to straighten it better. Okay, so there they are, straight, fairly straight. Some wires, like if you use, you can also use 18 gauge for these base wires, and those are going to take a little, they're going to be a little harder to straighten, and that's where you may need the nylon jaw pliers. But okay, now with this wire, the 26 gauge, the small weaving wire, and by the way, like I said, I got these from parawire.com. They have all different colors. You can have purples and pinks and reds and just about any color you can imagine they've got. And they have all different kinds of gauges as well. And they do have aluminum wire, which if you're not familiar with the difference between this kind of wire that we're using, which I believe is a copper core, and then it's silver plated with a coating on it that makes it hypoallergenic, I believe. If you're not familiar with that kind of wire and the difference between that and aluminum wire, I cover that in the other video. So I don't want to take the time here to go over it again since it's there. And probably a lot of people coming on this know a little bit about wire wrapping. So, but this is one that even beginners can do. Now, what we're eventually going to do is have all of these three wires, and we're going to use this smaller wire to wrap around them in a pattern. And that's the pattern that we have set up here. You can see it has a nice pattern, and according to how many times you can change the pattern slightly by wrapping more times or less times, and it makes it really nice. But this is one that even beginners can do pretty easily. So 3 of those, relatively straight. They don't have to be totally straight. Please don't obsess over that, because as you're weaving, they will kind of get out of order and a little bit bent, and you'll have to readjust them anyway. So it's not a big deal. Okay, here's what we're going to do. Okay, we're going to start with our base wire, and we're going to put this weaving wire point down in against our forefinger. Okay, then lay our base wire on top of it. Now remember, we need approximately 2 finger joints on the end of this, and you want enough of a tail here that you can hang on to it. So that's up to you how much you do. Now our weaving wire, this is what's on the spool. It's coming up off the top. Alright, now what we're going to do, our main weaving wire comes off up to the top. We have the tail down here at the bottom. We put the wire on top, hang on to it, not a death grip, but hang on to it snugly. There's a difference between snug and tight. Snug is where you hold it solidly, but tight is where you're probably going to bend the wire, and you don't really want to do that if you can help it, but it is going to happen. So now just grab that weaving wire and pull it down. Use your index finger on this hand to push it over so it stays as snug as possible. Then we're going to pull it around and make sure it's laying right next to the other one. And we're going to snug it over again. Use your index finger as you pull it to snug it down. So now you can see they're not very close together. Well, that's where your fingernails are going to come in handy, and you're going to push them together. Okay? And again, I apologize for having not having a good manicure and pretty nails like everybody, but frankly, I have chronic fatigue syndrome, and that's just not on my agenda. So, okay. I almost lost it. It'll come out at this point. It's very loose. You don't want it to be totally loose, but you do want it to be enough that you can adjust it if you need to. Okay, hang on and do it again. Use this finger to push over. Push it over so it's nice and snug. If it's not snug enough, use your fingernails to push it together. And this one's just not being very snug together. Okay, do it again. You want 5 totals. This is called coiling. You're coiling the wire on there. If you really get it to a point where you can't get them together nice to lay straight, you can use your pliers, but I recommend against it because they tend to scratch the wires. So, okay, this type of coiling, I got one more to go, so I'm going to go around and snug it up there nice and tight. Okay, snug it up there nice and tight. Okay, now this type of coiling you can actually do all the way down to give a certain type of effect, and then you can use that when you're doing pendants, or you can use it, you can coil it and then use the wire you coiled it around, especially if you use a 20 gauge or maybe 22 gauge, then you can coil this around another wire, which gives a totally different effect. I'll show later somewhere. I think at the end I'll show that. So, because I don't see it right now. All right, so this is where we're at. We've got 5 coils around this. And really a good way to get used to wire is really to coil a lot. But if you're going to coil, sometimes it's easier if you start at this end and coil and then push it down as you go. Although I don't like doing that because it can kind of damage the wire coating if you coil too tight. But it's a good way to learn. Okay, now we take our second one, our second wire. We currently have our weaving wire coming down over the front and down. Okay, so we're going to put this on the back, on top. Now here's where we have to learn the difference between snug and tight for sure, because we're going to wrap these 2 wires, base wire 1 and base wire 2, we're going to wrap them together. But we've got to do it only snugly, not tightly, because eventually we're going to come back and do this same 5 coils around just wire number 1. So there's got to be enough room in between these later on when we come back. So we're going to come up the back and go around both of them. Use this finger to move it over and pull it down. Okay, there you've got 1. We need to do 3 of those. So we pull it up around the back, use our finger to push it over, and come down. Now we have 2. See, they're not together, so we're going to push them over. If sometimes pushing them over on the back too helps. Okay, and then we're going to do 1 more. So you go up around the back, use our finger to push it over, and pull it down. And there we have, see, there's enough room in between. We'll be able to get back in there. There we have 3, we have 5 coils on the bottom one, on 1. We're going to call that weaving wire 1. And then 3 coils on weaving wire 2 and 3. That's the first part of our pattern. Now we add our next weaving wire up at the top. And again, if these aren't totally even, we can even them out later, but we try to get them even as we put them on. All right, here we go. Now again, we need to do this snug, not tight, because this time we want to go around just weaving wire 2 and 3. 2 and 3 is all we're going to go around. So that means that you need to keep it open, because sometimes we're going to come back and go just around 1 and 2 again. So we're going to need to leave it so we can get in there, but we want to also hold it down. So it's got to be snug. So we're going to go all the way up in the back, all the way up to the top. All the way up to the top, pull it over, and now we're going to go between 1 and 2. Go between 1 and 2. This is where we make sure it's snug but not tight, and we push it over. Okay, so we go around again, pull it over in the back here, that'll help. And then we pull it down. We're going between 1 and 2. Whoops, that didn't happen because there. Sometimes you have to pull them apart like that so you can see where you're going. Okay, now we're going between 1 and 2. We want to snug it over. Still not good. Snug it over and do it one more time. We come up over the top and we come down the side and then go between weaving wire 1 and 2, which I thought I did, but I didn't. Okay. Pull it over, and there we have it. So we're halfway through our pattern. We have 5 on the bottom, 3, 3. Obviously, this weave could be changed easily by putting only 1 wrap here, or 1 wrap here, or 2, or whatever, however you want to change the pattern. It gives it a different look, but it's the same basic weaving. All right, now we've done the top 3. Now our next one in the pattern is going to be go around these bottom 2. So we come, and notice where we are. We're back here in the back. We don't want to come down because that will cause problems in the back. So what we have to do is we're going to wrap around just wire number 2 at this point. We're going to come up. Okay, we came to this point. We went around 2 and 3. Now we're just going, instead of going all the way up and over number 3, we're going to go between 2 and 3. That way, that particular wrap, if you look on the back, that particular one is only around wire number 2. See that? It only goes around wire number 2. And then we come down and we go between 3 and 2, because now we're wrapping around wires 1 and 2. Pull it over, snug it up, go again between 2 and 3, snug it up, and we've got 3 rounds around this one. So far our pattern is 5 singles, 3 over 1 and 2, 3 over 2 and 3, 3 over 1 and 2, and the next part is going to be 5 again, just around number 1. So we go 5 around number 1. 1. This is hard to do on a camera, okay, because usually I have it a lot closer than I'm doing. Closer to my eyes. So I'm trying to do it and make sure that I've got, so you can see 2 Not quite over where I want it. Three. Four. And 5. And that is one whole pattern that we have to do. So from there we go, we have to do 1 and 2 again. So we do 1 and 2. Again, we go 1 and 2, pull it over, snug it up, and 1 and 2, because we want to do 3 rounds of that. Make sure it's over. If you need to turn it over and snug it on the back, you can. Okay, now we're down here at the bottom. Now we're going to do all the way up the back so we can do 2 and 3. So we're going to go between 1 and 2. Oops, I'm not there. Here I am. 1 and 2. We go between those two, pull it over. Okay. We do it again. We do it 3 times. Pull it over, snug it up, and do it a 3rd time. So we're just wrapping around. We're just wrapping around 2 and 3. Wires 2 and 3. And you want to make sure they're even so you don't have a little bump sticking out there like this is wanting to do. There we go. Okay. Pull it all up. Then we go just around that number 2 wire. And down over 1 and 2. And we do that 3 times. Snug it up. Okay, so we're down there 3 times. And like I said, don't worry about these bending a little bit. We'll get them back in shape. Okay, and then we do 5 around the bottom. Oops, I'm sorry. I went front to back instead of back to front. You go back to front all the time. I wasn't paying attention because I was too busy with the camera. Back to front. Just be consistent. Sometimes it's a little easier to push those in when you've got 2 or 3 of them in there. 3, 4, and 5. Okay, we've got 5. Make sure they're scrunched in. And then we're ready to start our same pattern over again. Okay, so we just did the 5. We're going to do 3 on 1 and 2, and then 3 on 2 and 3, and then 3 on 1 and 2, and then 5 down on the bottom. Okay, that's our pattern all the way along. And we do that until we get about 2 finger joints from the end. Okay? Okay. It's about there. I probably could go one more, but I don't know. That's all the further I'm going to go. All right, now this is the front of it that we've been weaving along. And we now need to take care of this little wire. We need to unhook or to cut off whatever is left. So turn over onto the back and get the wire as much in the middle of these 2 as you can. And then you're going to snip it right there. Now, the problem is when you snip a wire, then you have like this pokey bit right here that you've got to deal with. And if you can get it onto the back and you can get it in the middle between wires, it will help, okay? It'll be easier. So, like this, it's right here. Come on. There. Okay, you see how it's coming up? It's got that little point right there. That's what we want to try to eliminate. This is really going to be hard doing this without looking at it. No, actually, I didn't do too bad, although it's still pokey. If you kind of press it down, you kind of squeeze it, and sometimes you may have to get in there and actually do another snip with it if it's not going to behave itself, which this one is kind of not wanting to. Now this one is still very pokey, so what I'm going to do is this. Okay, I can't get in far enough, so guess I'm not doing that. It's still poking quite a bit, so I'm going to just squeeze it a little more. And there, that's better. Okay, you want to do it until it stops poking, because you don't want it to snag something that you're wearing, right? Okay, now on the other end we have to do a similar thing. This one actually ends up being a little easier, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab this tail and I'm going to pull it over here more. I have an easier time when they're this direction. Okay, so we've got that, and kind of smudge it down so it's not going to poke people, and there we have it. Okay, here we are. It's all done. We've got the tails done and everything, so we're sitting here looking at our beautiful work, and we want to decide, now we have a decision to make. We want to decide which side we want in towards the center of the pendant. Okay, now if you'll notice on this one, I chose to have the 5 wraps on the bottom in towards the center. With this one, I chose to have the 3 at the top in the center. So it does make a difference in how it looks, but it's totally up to you to choose which way you want it to go. Now I'm going to put this one with the 3 up in the center, and the way that we do that is by bending it slightly, a little at a time. We don't want any severe bends. We want it to be nice and smooth. So we bend it a little at a time. Remember, you want it flat. You want to keep it as flat. And you'll notice that right here I didn't do an extremely great job because it's not totally flat right there. So I can fix that. If you have parts where you want it to sit down a little bit more before you get into everything, take your nylon jaw pliers and squeeze it flat. This is kind of a nice step to do, and I usually do. I just kind of, everything's off because of the video. It's a little different. Now, it's not going to fix all your problems, obviously, but it will make it all lay nice and flat. So it's kind of a good step to do at this point to give it a little bit better chance at looking nicer. So we're going to take this, and again, we're bending it whichever direction you choose, whether you want to have the 3 up or the 5 up, that's up to you. And we'll bend it, just keep bending it slightly, a little at a time. Don't be in a hurry at this stage. You put all that effort into weaving. You don't want to hurry this stage. Now you see I'm getting kind of a bend here. I really want less of that kind of bend, unless of course that's what you're going for. I want it a little more even. So I'm going to work with it, and that's the nice thing about wire. You can work with it. Now, you can, at this stage, you have another decision to make. Your decision is, how do you want, what shape do you want this to be? Do you want it to be more of a teardrop, or do you want it to be more round, like if you're trying to put some kind of round stone in there, or if you're putting a some other kind of stone that's a different, more teardrop shape or whatever. What shape do you want this to be? Of course, you can play with it a little bit more. As these start to come together, you're going to want to stagger them. Every other one. So make sure you've got the right ones. See, these are kind of close together, so I'm going to separate those. So I make sure I get the right ones I want every other one. Every other one. And I always have one that doesn't want to go the right direction. There. Okay. See, it makes kind of a nice pattern. All right. Now, I actually am going to show you, in the next video, I'm going to show you 3 ways to finish them off. So there's 3 possible types of tops you can have. And so let me just pull this together a little bit. One of them will be where you have this kind of a top showing. One will be more like this with the traditional bail and the spirals, because I'll show you how to do spirals. And then the other one will be a little bit of a combination of both. So I'm going to show you how to do that, but that's going to be in the next video. Again, my connection is just so slow. I have to split up the videos, and I hope you don't mind, but some people need one thing instead of the other. Now you'll notice this one is kind of smaller, obviously smaller than these, because I didn't weave as much. So if you want it to be a little bit bigger, you can weave more. You can do, I could have probably done this much more on each side. So maybe not the full, see, this is a little longer. This is quite long, actually. I really should have done more. So, somewhere in this vicinity, you really don't want it too long, but maybe less than 2 inches. Okay, 1.5 inches probably is about what you need on each end. But this is what we have. And of course, depending on what you want with it, if you want it as an earring, this may be all the bigger you want it. So it's up to you totally. And like I said, we're going to talk more about in the next video. We'll discuss how to take these wires and what to do with them. This is where, when I started doing the wire weaves, it's like, okay, I got the hang of the weave. Now what do I do? How do I deal with it? Well, I tried one. It didn't turn out real well. And so I just didn't know what to do with them when it got to this point. But I'm going to show you, like I said, 3 different ways you can finish it off from this point on, and that's in the next video. So I hope you enjoyed this. Here's where we're at this point. And we'll come back, and that one's a lot smaller because I was anxious. I'm going to do one that'll be bigger. It'll have the same base wire length, but I'll do it so it's bigger for us. But there we have it. This is what we're working on, and we're going to take all these funky wires in the next video and make it look like something you can actually wear. So thanks for stopping by. I hope you enjoyed it. And if you leave me comments, tell me, this is my very first tutorial, really, this series that I'm doing. So I want to get better at doing tutorials. So if you've got good ideas, please let me know. I will be getting another light, but it probably will be a little while before I can afford it. So let me know what I can do better, what I can do different. I want to make them better for you, and eventually I'll get into some crocheting ones too, but wire is kind of what I'm working on right now. So talk to you later. Bye-bye.